today we're going to talk about teaching your dog to stay. We're going to start out with teaching a stay while your dog is in a seated position, since I assume you have already taught your dog how to sit. So the first step to this is that you need to choose what we call a release word, which is the word that you will say to release your dog from a stay position, because we don't want them self-releasing for obvious reasons. It's not really a stay if they're self-releasing. So the word that I have picked is break. You can pick any word that is easy for you to remember and to say. A lot of people pick okay. Okay was a problem for me. I used to use that, but I say okay in my everyday speech so much that I wanted it to be something that I don't really say as much. I can remember I was practicing stays with my dog, and my husband said something to me, and I said okay back to him. Well, then the dog got up because that was the release word. So I realized that I needed a less common word to use. So I picked break. You can say stop, you can say done, you can say thank you, although that's something you just need to think about words that you don't want it to be a word you're going to use in another context with your dog. You also want it to sound kind of positive. So when I say break to my dog, I say break, and it's exciting. So if it's something like done or thank you, stop sounds kind of negative. So just be thinking about what you want your release word to be, and it needs to be consistent. Every time you release, you use that word. So you will start with your dog at your side, like we did when we were walking nicely on a leash. Can be on your left or right side, but sitting next to you. Put them in a sit, and then tell them to stay while putting the palm of your hand like this, in front of their face, and say stay. And you're not going to move. You're going to stand right beside them. And if they stay for 1 second, you're going to give them a cookie and give their release word and have a party and have them get up. And then you're going to turn around and you're going to do it again. And you're going to keep doing that for 1 second until you think they're comfortable with that. And then you're going to increase the time to 2 seconds. And so on until you get to about 10 seconds. If they get up, what you need to do is just scoop their rear end under and to put them back into a sit, like when we were teaching sit and I showed you how to scoop their rear end under to get them to sit. You will do that instead of telling them to sit, because remember, you already told them once to sit at the beginning of this. So you're going to put them back into a sit and tell them stay, and shorten the amount of time, because if they're getting up, that means that you're progressing too quickly for them, and you need to make it easier so that they're successful. Always set your dog up for success. So if you're asking them to stay for longer than they can handle, go back and shorten the amount of time. So once you can build up to 10 seconds sitting next to you staying without breaking, then you're ready to start pivoting in front of your dog while they stay in a seated position. And what you will do is start with your foot that is on the farthest from the dog. So if your dog is on your left, you will start pivoting with your right foot after you tell them to stay. If they get up, put them back into a sit like I explained, and go back a step and reward them for staying. If they start getting up, that means you're trying to move through the process too quickly. So you will be pivoting in front of your dog and standing toe to toe facing your dog. and have them sit and stay in that position. And I should say you're rewarding every stay with a treat. So when you pivot in front of them, you start again with 1 second. And they stay for 1 second, you reward, and you use your release word and have them get up and throw a party. Then you're going to do it again. But they need to get used to your movement, because most dogs, they think, when you move, they're supposed to move. So that is why you're teaching them stay without you moving at first, so they get the hang of it. And then you start this pivot in front of them using your foot that's farthest away from them. The reason to use that opposite foot, that's a signal for them to stay. Whereas if you're taking them walking like we did in the previous exercise, you're going to start out with the foot closest to the dog to show them they are to walk with you. So the foot farthest from them means stay. The foot closest means you're walking with me. And just be very consistent with that. Dogs need consistency in their training. So we're back to the pivot, and you've taught them to stay for 1 second. You can say good stay, give them a treat, and release word, and then party. So you're going to build up to that for 10 seconds while you're in front of them. If they do well with the 10 seconds and they're not getting up, then you will do your pivot, and you will take 1 step backwards. If they get up, go back to them, put them in a stay, and back up because they're not ready. So you will build your stay that way. You will, when they can stay for 10 seconds with you in one position, then you're going to step back and be a little bit farther each time from them. Now this process is going to be several days, probably several weeks, just getting to this point. So don't be in a hurry to get on to the next step. You want your dog to be successful. You don't want your dog to start shutting down with this, not liking it because, you're trying to move too fast and they're not getting it. Always make sure your dog is successful. With Java, I started training her on this when she was a little bitty puppy, and it took a long time because she was very active and she didn't want to stay. So it took about 6 months to teach her to stay. So you're looking at a time investment with this, but I think it's well worth it. The stay is an impulse control exercise, and it's always important for us to teach our dogs impulse control. It's just like a kid. You don't want them acting out every impulse that they have. You want them, if they want to do something, they need to look to you for permission to act on that impulse rather than just going for it every time. So that is a way to get started teaching the stay. You will eventually want to be able to put your dog in a stay and be able to walk around your dog behind, walk all the way a circle around your dog and end up where you started. But that's a more advanced skill. You need to work on just the regular stay first. A lot of dogs are not comfortable with someone walking behind them, so they will get up. So what I do when I'm teaching this, I put a treat in front of their nose, let them be chewing on it as I'm walking around them to get them more comfortable with me going behind them so that they will stop getting up. So I think that's about it for the stay. I'll show you some examples of it, and I've got some written instructions on this because it is kind of complicated. You have to progress slowly through the steps on that. So I will be posting some videos of teaching stay.